Okay, we're going to run through commas very quickly. So this is everything you need to know about commas and probably way more than that. If you haven't guessed, we're going to talk about commas today. And then commas and some commas followed by more commas, also some commas, then there's some commas. We'll close it out with some commas followed by dogs. So first, compound sentences. Commas separate independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction. You remember your coordinating conjunctions are fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. So these are three examples of compound sentences. I cannot attend the opera, for I have far too much work. His pet grasshopper died, and his brother ate it. She received a 40% on the quiz, so she was grounded. You see, the first half and the last half of these sentences can all stand on their own, but they are linked by the conjunction and the comma. So now we ask that you write two of your own using one of the fanboys' conjunctions. You can pause that because I am going to move on to introductory clauses. Commas usually come after introductory dependent clauses. And you're probably thinking, well, that's great, but how do I know if it's an introductory clause? Well, don't you worry, because I'm pretty much telling you right here. These words set off introductory clauses. There are many more examples, but when you see these words, they signal a dependent clause to start a sentence. Although, as, because, if, since, when, while, well, however, yes, those will always set off a dependent clause. Only if a sentence begins with this do you use a comma. So an incorrect kind of non-example, the bear clawed at the door while I cried. There's no need for a pause there. You should not say, the bear clawed at the door while I cried. That's just awkward. It doesn't make sense. But if you flip that around and you start with the dependent clause, you need that pause. So for example, while I cried, the bear clawed at the door. It's a much more natural sounding sentence. Now we ask you to write an incorrect and correct example using the introductory clauses. Pretty much an example and a non-example. And once again, you can pause because this is going to move on to appositive phrases. Now, appositive phrases are not essential to the meaning of the sentence. What they do, or what you were supposed to do, is surround that non-essential information with commas. So there are three example sentences here that include non-essential information. And on the bottom, we have taken out that non-essential information. And you'll see that it doesn't really affect the meaning of the sentence. And you can also hear the shift in tone of voice when you read an appositive phrase. So here we go. Nickelback, the worst band ever, are going on tour. The food, although delicious, is too expensive for my budget. I, of course, passed my science test. So we have those same three sentences without the appositive phrases. Nickelback are going on tour. The food is too expensive for my budget. I passed my science test. Those sentences do not lose any information that was given up above, but you hear there's a different tone of voice because you don't have that pause. So on the bottom, write two examples of appositive phrases within sentences. Once again, you can pause because this will continue. Quotations. You should have had practice with this in 6th grade, so hopefully this serves as nothing more than a refresher. But use commas to separate the speaker from the quote. You can do this before a quote. My dad said, let's go on vacation. You can do it when interrupting a quote if you want to break up a long quote. Good evening, said the speaker. Thank you for coming. Or you can do it after. I love drawing stomach muscles, said the man. So you always need a comma when dealing with quotations. It just matters on where you put them, depending if you have your quotation broken up if you use some kind of narration after or before. And now we move to dates. You naturally use commas when expressing dates. On December 7th, 1941, the United States entered World War II. However, if you were going to be a little less specific and just say the month and the year, you don't need that comma. The United States entered World War II in December 1941. So when you get very specific and you use the month, the date, and the year, that's when you need the comma. And as far as locations go, this is kind of weird in terms of the rules, but that's the English language for you. Commas separate city and state, which you should all know. So for example, I was born in Detroit, comma, Michigan. You need a comma after the state unless it's at the end of a sentence, or if you use the abbreviation of the state. So I have lived in Raleigh, North Carolina since August 2013. Now, if you want to use a comma after the state unless it is at the end of a sentence, then it's I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. So after North Carolina would be the period. And then this one down here, I have lived in Raleigh, NC since August 2013. So when you're formally writing out the name of the state, you need the comma afterwards unless that ends the sentence. And last but not least, dogs. You were promised a dog, so here we go. Although, unfortunately, commas and dogs are in no way related to one another, which I really hope you assumed. So I'm truly sorry if you went through this presentation with the hope of learning about dogs, but I'm sure our media center is filled with bountiful resources about canines, and there's also that wonderful tool called the internet. With anything you need to know about dogs, you can probably find. I'm going to stop talking about dogs now. Okay, bye.